Hello, everyone. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast here at J More Living. I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. We're going to talk about that subject in a little bit. Those of you watching us live, please feel free to ask questions or make comments, and I will be watching side to side if those comments come in and questions. If you've missed any of our shows, they are always archived up at the J More Living Facebook page, videos, and also jmoreliving.com. Those who follow me on Instagram at Dara Cook saw a reel I created of me baking New York style bagels. Now, you know, I'm a frustrated baker, so I wanted to attempt this. If it wasn't for today's guest, I doubt I would have tried. Her new cookbook, Bagel, Schmears, and a nice piece of fish, was my inspiration. Cathy Barrow is a food writer, cooking teacher, and pie maker. For over a decade, she has been a regular contributor to the Washington Post food section. She has written for the New York Times, Garden and Gun, The Local Palate, Modern Farmer, Savoir, Southern Living, NPR, and National Geographic, among others. Her first cookbook, Mrs. Wheelbarrow's Practical Pantry, won the prestigious ICP Award for the Best Single Subject Cookbook. Her second book, Pie Square, was a James Beard Foundation nominee for baking under the categories in baking and desserts. In addition, look for her other titles, When Pigs Fly, and the aforementioned Bagel, Schmears, and a nice piece of fish. There she is. Hi, Cathy.
Hi.
What's on your plate today?
Well, Dara, let me just correct one thing. It's when pies fly, not when pigs fly. It's really easy to confuse them.
You know, I'm reading it.
It's happened a lot. It's happened before.
You know, that's my show. People tune in to see what I'm going to screw up. I think.
No. Oh, that's funny. Anyway, I'm very happy to be here with you today.
Bagel, Schmears, and a nice piece of fish. You dedicated it to your mishpacha. For those of you watching who don't know what mishpacha means, it's Yiddish for family or almost family. You grew up living in Toledo, Ohio. There weren't any good bagels there, so your bubby would bring them from the Boston area, Brookline, I think. These bagels were full of memories for you, and you talked about it in the book. You stated they were sort of the yardstick by all other bagels were judged. Tell us more.
I only knew those bagels. We didn't have bagels all the time, only when my grandmother Bee would arrive. And then at some point in my childhood, Lender's bagels became a thing. I'm sure you remember Lender's. Frozen. I mean, they really were not a bagel, but they were shaped like a bagel. And so we would eat the Lenders knowing they weren't a real bagel, that the real bagels came from my grandmother when she came from Boston. And so I always knew that that's what I was looking for. But in the interim, Lenders and a little schmear, that's what we had.
So a schmear, for those who don't understand, give them a little definition of a schmear.
Yeah, so you can learn a little Yiddish in this book, you know, aside from learning how to make bagels. But a schmear for me is better than cream cheese. It's cream cheese that's a little softened and a little bit bright with lemon juice. So I take up just a block of Philadelphia cream cheese and I add in 2 tablespoons of sour cream and the juice of half a lemon. And that right there makes that cream cheese easy to spread and bright tasting, and it kind of offsets the stabilizers that are in all cream cheese. So,
and just before I forget, in the book, there's a recipe how to make your own cream cheese if you want to do it.
There is.
Yes. I find certain food memories or aromas conjure up food memories. For me, it's chicken soup. It was that Friday night dinner, not that we called it Shabbat dinner, but it was the Friday night dinner. There was always chicken soup and that aroma. I make it sometimes. I don't want the soup. I just want the house to smell like the chicken soup.
My gosh, me too.
Um, any particular aroma beyond bagels that create an image in your mind that take you back?
Absolutely. Pie baking. The smell of pie dough, the butter in the oven and the bubbling fruit, especially a cherry pie, that is a big memory of my childhood, which is why I wrote 2 books on pie. I mean, really love my pie.
Well, let's see. When pigs fly were the small pies, right?
When pies fly, yes.
Okay. When pies fly. Did I say pigs again?
Yeah,
When
those are hand pies, but I also use the opportunity to talk about pies from around the world. I mean, there's so many ways that human beings wrap nuggets of food in pastry, if you think about it. Everything from a Chinese dumpling to a taco to a blintz to a Cornish pasty. I mean, those are all examples, and it's because um, there was a need to extend that small bit of protein. And so you can take a little bit of meat and wrap it in pastry and make it filling. So,
right, you're thinking empanadas, knishes.
and all of those are in that book. Yes. Mhm.
That's great. And then the book that was nominated for James Beard was Slab Pie, wasn't it?
Correct. Pi squared celebrates the idea that you can make a pie in a quarter sheet pan, which is half the size of the regular sheet pans that we use. And it would serve then 8 pieces, 12 pieces, sort of depending on how rich the filling is. And there are half savory and half sweet pies in that book.
And I'm going to get back onto Schmears. I'm going to jump around because it makes
That's
it more
good.
interesting. What can I say? Um, what was your aha moment? Sometimes I like to refer to it like the Wizard of Oz when black and white turned to color. When was that aha moment that you said sent you off on the Bagel Odyssey?
Well, I had been trying to make bagels since I was in college. I mean, I kept trying, and I made one terrible bagel adjacent bread product after another. None of them could be called bagels. And so it would come and go. I would do it for a while, and then I'd give up for a few years. I had a revelatory moment when the Washington Post published an article about bagels, and they revealed in that article that high gluten flour was the real secret. And I had never either researched enough or it just wasn't that available to me. High gluten flour is now a little more available, although you do need to mail order it. But because it has a high protein level, the gluten is strong. And that's what makes that rip when you tear a bagel apart, the crunch, that crispy exterior, the shiny exterior is all part of that high gluten flour. And so once I read that in the Post, and then found some through King Arthur and started to play around with it. It was like bells going off. I was ready. But then the second one came when I was trying to get to a recipe that would make 6 bagels. I felt very strongly that because so many of the recipes that exist out there made 8 or 9 or 12, and I am in a small household. It's just me and my husband, and to have that many bagels was overwhelming, and it made it less of a regular thing than, okay, it's something special. I have to settle in to make all these bagels. So now I work the recipe to get it to make 6. And it's not as simple as just doing division because you want to get to places where the amount of yeast is a an even amount. Is it a half a teaspoon or a full teaspoon, not a half plus a quarter plus an eighth or something like that. And so there was a lot of adjusting, but I got to this place where I had 6 perfect bagels that each was the right size. They weren't giant, they weren't tiny, but they were the right size. So that was exciting.
And it fit on your quarter of sheet pan.
That's correct. And for many people, the issue of space in the refrigerator or even in the oven is challenging. As people who live in apartments, people who, especially in New York City, they would always say to me, I don't have room to put a full sheet pan in my refrigerator. I have a tiny refrigerator. So to get to this, easy 6 that fit on a quarter sheet pan and is one batch in the oven, and that's it. You don't have to do a second batch. You're not boiling forever. It's fast. It's good.
In the book, I guess the first two that I tackled was a New York bagel versus a Montreal bagel. Can you explain those differences to people?
Yes, New York bagels are traditionally flavored with barley malt, which is that smell that you smell in every great bagel shop. It comes as either a syrup or a powder. The syrup is more widely available. They are boiled and then they're baked. And in a traditional New York bagel bakery, they're flipped over halfway through. At home, we work that out with a pizza stone or baking steel so you get heat from the bottom. A Montreal bagel is sweetened with honey. It is not made with that high gluten flour, so it doesn't tend to have the same chew. It's sweeter. And the water that it boils in is sweetened with honey. They're often made in wood-fired ovens, so you also get a kind of smoky wood thing going on. So I had to learn about Montreal bagels. I'd had them, but it had been many, many years. And here we were in a pandemic. I mean, normally I would have just said to my husband, let's go to Montreal and eat bagels for a week. But instead, I had 6 dozen bagels shipped to me from Saint-Viateur in Montreal, the classic bagel shop, and worked my way through those. How do they freeze? How do they refreshed? How are they toasted? Tasted all the different varieties, and that's how I developed my recipe.
Well, I know in New York it's Black Seed Bakery.
Yes.
They do the Montreal style.
They do.
But there is Jerusalem or Israeli bagel that's long.
Oval shaped, correct.
Okay. Somebody had picked it up in Philadelphia. I have a question here. Have you experienced the Aussie meat pie?
Yes. I have made Aussie meat pies. I've made British meat pies, pork pies, and also the kinds of pies that you find in the south of France. So I think there's a lot to be said for meat inside a pie.
That's where my leftover steak and meat goes.
Correct.
My meat knishes out of those. All righty. Let's talk yeast, because in reading your book, I had yeast was, during the pandemic, you couldn't find yeast.
This is true.
It was difficult. It was hard to come by. So now I stock up on it. But I have the fast acting. I have the active. Now, the fast rising, no good for bagels. Active, you can adapt, but instant yeast, can you explain what makes
so
different?
It's a company called SAF, and it comes in a block that's in a vacuum sealed, kind of like a coffee package. I can get it at Costco, get it through Amazon. I found it in a lot of grocery stores now. And you keep it in the freezer and it lasts about a year. So SAF instant yeast, the beauty of it is that you can stir it into your dry ingredients. You know how most active yeast, the active dry yeast, you have to put into warm liquid, sometimes with a little flour, a little sugar, to wait till it bubbles to know that it's available and ready and good. But instant yeast just goes right into dry ingredients, gets stirred up all at once. It has a little more oomph. I just love using it. I use it for everything now. My challah, all of my baking. It's also more, I think you'll find buying that larger package and keeping it in the freezer is less expensive than buying the small foil packed.
Right. Or what I say, more cost effective.
There you are.
That's my phrasing. No matter if anything's cheap, I go, oh, it's cost effective.
Cost effective, exactly.
Recently, I've been noticing, I think the Washington Post started and the New York Times. Before they used to just say, use kosher salt. 2 brands, Diamond and Morton's. Now they're being specific that you can't use the same measurement for both. And I saw that you adjusted, this was when writing it, I'm assuming was almost 2 years ago, and I'm seeing it more and more in recipes.
Yeah, I actually wrote about this in my first book in 2013 because that was a preserving book, and often, things are preserved with salt, and the difference between Morton's and Diamond Crystal is that Morton's, let me think if I want to get this correct, is saltier. If you use a teaspoon of each, the Morton's will taste saltier. So you really have to use half a teaspoon of Morton's to a teaspoon of Diamond Crystal. I keep Diamond Crystal in the house. Everything I make is with that. I test my recipes with it. So I want people to be successful. So I ask them to use the same one or to adjust their Morton's salt accordingly. It can make a huge difference in something like a half sour pickle. I mean, there's a recipe in the book for half sours. It's just a cucumber and salt and water. And if it's doubly salty, it'll ruin your pickle.
Very interesting. Okay. Having been lucky enough to get an advance copy of Bagel Schmears, a nice piece of fish, is coming out what, March 15th?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Okay, everyone. This book is going like wildflower beforehand. So I got a copy of the book. I did a reel on baking the New York bagel, and we had a lot of response to that. And anybody who wants to find it, find at Dara Cooks on Instagram. I'm sure you can get your hands on it. But I did step by step and some video and some stills. Knowing that I'm a frustrated baker, knowing that I accomplished a perfect bagel the first time I tried it, I was just so proud of myself. And it all has to do with how detailed and well done the recipes have been done.
Thank you.
The book, let me hold it up, and she has it in the back, and it does read properly. There we go. All right. The book's design is fabulous.
Shout out to Lizzie Vaughn. Lizzie Vaughn from Chronicle Books saw this design and just ran with it. It was just brilliant. We started out with those double pages of black and white to open up each chapter. That was the first thing that I saw. And I just said, yeah, you've got it. That's it. And from there, she added the wonderful pages that look like order forms from an old diner, like there are places where it says, thank you, come again. It's adorable. Everything about it. The table of contents looks like a menu. She really brought it. And then our prop stylist came in with that great formica that's in the background and some of the different tiles. It just sings.
Reminiscent of the delicatessens.
Correct.
Schmears. Let's talk about Schmears for a bit. We talked about it, that the recipe is there, that you can make your own cream cheese, or you can use cream cheese and add sour cream and lemon. But it's more than just those 2 items. And the Schmears,
there are almost 24 different ones.
That had apricots, jalapeno, and thyme in it. I think.
Dried apricot, thyme, and toasted coconut in the schmear.
Toasted coconut and the jalapeno.
Yes. I'm sorry. A sandwich. That's okay. Yeah. That one is spectacular. I had a great time putting together these schmears. I felt like I could open my cupboard and just think, what would I do if I put that in a schmear? And I was making all kinds of crazy combinations. And anyway, we end up with about a dozen sweet and a dozen savory. One of my favorites was the cherry cheesecake schmear. That's got crumbled graham crackers and sour cherry jam and the cream cheese and a little bit of confectioner's sugar to make you think about cheesecake.
Mm,
That's so fun. There's one of my all-time favorite sandwiches when I was a kid was chopped olives and cream cheese on date walnut bread. My grandmother used to give it to me. Sounds weird. I loved it. And so there's an olive schmear where you just take chopped up green onions or chopped black onions, olives, or black olives and stir it into your schmear. And that's delicious on a like a poppy seed bagel or a pumpernickel bagel. Um, yeah, there are a lot of fun ones in there. And ways to use your leftover lox and your leftover kippered salmon to make schmears out of that. Again, extending what's left.
right. It's, I have to say, I'm a gravlax addict. It's something anybody can do. Now, I remember the first time I made gravlax, it was like let it in the refrigerator for a week and all these lemons, and how has time gone on is simplified. So you have one using red beets.
Yes.
That's
I
the
think
one.
actually it was simple. Then people made it complicated. And now we've stripped that away and made it simple again. Because people have been, preserving fish in this way for millennia. This is what you did when you were a fisher person in the North Sea. You got all your fish and then you had to eat it all year long. Um, so, yeah, the lox, Nova, is not smoked. And it's the easiest thing in the world. Salt, sugar, wrap it up, wait it, put it in the fridge, and in 3 days you have lox. Mhm. And the beet one is pretty.
The beet one's pretty. I remember when I went to Black Seed, they had that that
Hmm.
that beet, and they had the watermelon radish on it.
Pretty.
I know, it's very pretty. Other question. I gather you are a big fan of Jewish or kosher style cooking. What are your top three dishes other than bagels?
Oh, well, brisket. Who doesn't love a good brisket, right? I love brisket. I have my grandmother's recipe box, and there's things in there. There's a lamb stew that she used to make that I adore that has parsnips and carrots and baby potatoes and just a really rich brown gravy. It's wonderful. I love lamb. Simmis. Um, gosh, kasha, Veronicus. I mean, I'm just crazy about good Jewish food. Put it in front of me. I'm there.
And some people think Jewish food, but it's amazing. There's a new kosher cookbook coming out. Um, Carrie represents her. She's going to be on the show. I can't remember her
Well,
name.
I have to say, I wish I knew more about Sephardic cooking, and I have some cookbooks, and I'm starting to delve into it some. But my heart is my in my upbringing, and that's Ashkenazi, and my grandmother was from Lithuania, and her cooking was just very rich. She made these terrific borschts, I mean, all sorts, and yeah, so I'm very influenced by
That's
that.
an honest bonus in the book. There's a couple of borscht recipes in there as well.
Yes, there are.
Um, Now, here's where I screwed up the ingredients. You had a bagel Sammy that is
That's right.
called Wake Me Up with nectarine, bacon, and jalapeno. That's
Yeah, that
I
one is good. That's based on a terrific one, similar sandwich that's served at Call Your Mother Deli in DC that I just fell in love with. That jalapeno is zings. It's good.
well, depends. Seeds, you never know with a jalapeno whether it's going to be super hot or not. So
The schmear calms it down.
I think okay. Um, All right. Um, there's so much in this book. So I'm going to next. Okay, folks, I did New York, I did Montreal. Next is Bialys.
Yeah, yum.
I'll give that a shot. There's so much to this book beyond this. So if you don't want to make the bagels, you can still get it the schmears, the sandwiches. There's so much more than just bagel making. But if you
And they're all
want
those delicious deli salads too, that, from a basic egg salad that I think is really yummy, tuna salad, chicken salad, and then the queen of them all, the smoked whitefish salad. Yeah.
I saw that. I saw that. I get cookbooks in here and very few. I guess this one just appeals to me and part of that graphic, for a book to look good and feel good.
Mhm.
The personal story of talking about, you dedicated the book to Mishpacha, to the family, and there's some stories about the family and growing up in Toledo. Um, let's see, how are we doing here? Okay. I have a couple questions that I ask at the end of the show, and I forewarned you just so you're not caught off guard. And it doesn't mean we won't swing back about bagel schmears and a nice piece of fish. And I will remind people that contact information for Cathy will float up in the notes. It's very simple. You want to reach Cathy, you know how to spell Cathy Barrow, cathybarrow.com. She does a newsletter, Cook, Garden, Knit, and Repeat. You can sign up for that. Everything about her books, cathybarrow.com. On Instagram, Cathy Barrow at Cathy Barrow. So, my questions. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Two things. You're thin enough and don't be afraid to fail.
um, okay. I just saw somebody just said, yay, brisket on the notes. Okay. If you woke up tomorrow with a new talent, what would you want that new talent to be?
Oh, wow. I think that I would really love it if I could sing. I can't sing at all. I mean, not even to myself in the car. It would be great to be able to skip. Yeah, really. I would love that.
You're preaching to the choir. I tell this story to people that at my high school graduation, they tested everybody for singing at the graduation. We had 750 in our graduating year, 3 different graduations. They tested me. They said, just move your lips.
Oh, that's so funny.
I was scarred for life. I don't have to sing around
Right.
anyone. And I thought, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe, that's 50 some years ago. And the girl that I play cards with now, we went to high school, and she says, you're not crazy. They said the same thing to me.
So funny.
I can't sing, but I will sing in the car if it's just me. I don't care. And I'm sure doing cookbooks, but is there one epic culinary fail that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, I invited some people for dinner, people that I really wanted to impress, and I had marinated short ribs for a very long time in a sticky gochujang kind of sauce, and I put them on the grill and came back in the house for a few minutes. And during those few minutes, evidently there was a fire, a substantial one, because when I went back to the grill, there were only ashes left. And so there was nothing for dinner. It was epically failed. Yes. Mhm.
Okay. I feel like when we share our failures,
Yes, we can. We seem more human, right?
I think so. I just want to remind people before I ask the last question, if you're craving a New York deli bagel, you can go to Russ and Daughters and order bagels, cream cheese lox, babka, and coffee for $189. For $24.95, you can make them. Just thought I'd
Good
bring
point.
that into clarity. Final question. What didn't I ask you, Cathy, that I should have?
You didn't ask me if I was a Balabusta. Yiddish, I love Yiddish, and Balabusta may be my favorite word of all. Balabusta describes my great-grandmother Agatha, who I think of because she was chesty and short and kind of built like a linebacker, and she was tough, and she made everybody angry, but she ran the ship. She just totally knew what she was doing, and I know that Balabusta means a lot of it means, like, being a good homemaker and making a good home for people and good family. She did all of that plus. And I think of her often with this book because I have named things like Balabusta cream cheese. She would make her own. Balabusta sour cream. She would make her own. So Balabusta. It's good to be a Balabusta.
I do. Let me interject one last question. Is there anything on the drawing board for a new cookbook? Another cookbook?
Not ready to talk about it yet.
Okay. But you come back on the show when you're ready.
Of course I will.
Right. It has been a pleasure, Cathy, after all these years, one night, and it was Bonnie Benwick, at that time food editor of the Washington Post, who helped with the book here a little bit and looking
She
at it.
did.
David Hagedorn, food writer. I never know if I pronounce his last name.
Hagedorn.
Hagedorn, sorry. Sarah Moulton, Natalie Dupree, you and me, and one of my clients at dinner. And I think we would move between courses and sit next to different people.
That's right. It was so fun. So I should point out that I have a few events coming up starting on Sunday. If you're in the DC area, Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, we're doing a brunch at Lost Boy Cidery with Old Town Books. Bonnie Benwick will be interviewing me there. On Tuesday, which is publication day, David Hagedorn will be interviewing me at Bold Fork Books in Mount Pleasant. And then I have events in virtual events in New York, live events in Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and Seattle, and also Baltimore. So all of that is
coming to Baltimore.
May 5th at the Ivy.
Oh, okay, great. I'll be out of town, otherwise I'd be right there.
Oh, well, it would be nice. Anyway, you can find all the information about events on my website, which is cathybarrow.com.
Cathy, I thank you so much. It's a pleasure reconnecting. The book is a joy, everyone. If you haven't heard the name, which has been said 25 million times here, Bagel, Schmears, and a nice piece of fish, you should get it. Cathy, thank you so much. Continued success and good health. Was. Okay, everybody, I have some announcements. So stay tuned here. With Bagels on My Mind, on March 25th, celebrate Maryland Day with Maryland flag-inspired bagels at all the THB bagel stores. Limited time bagel offer consists of a marbled red, black, yellow, and white dough. THB will be donating to various charities, one being Nico's Hope for Life Foundation for awareness of suicide prevention. You can pre-order the Maryland Day bagels now through March 20th. Also, the mother company, Jaymore. Jaymore is hosting Aging Gratefully, a free in-person event on Tuesday, April 26th at 5 p.m. at the Gordon Center for Performing Arts. Exhibitors will offer giveaways starting at 5 p.m. and then at 6 p.m. you'll enjoy a moderated conversation on aging with gratitude, featuring experts on all aspects of aging. It isn't just for seniors, so grab your significant other, friends, adult children, and experience the benefits of aging. To register, jmoreliving.com/aging. Next week's show, the guest will be Shelby Blondell, a young young lady in her early 30s. She's an inventor of the patented The Sheller, a 3-in-1 shellfish tool, crabs, steamed Alaska King, stone, lobster. From concept to shelves and all in between, it's a fascinating story, so I hope you will tune in. You can reach me at food@jmoreliving. My Instagram is @DaraCooks. The show will be archived on Jay Moore's Facebook page and jmoreliving.com, so the videos are always there for you to view. Thank you, as always, for watching and sharing the show with friends and family. Until next week, may your plates always, always remain full.